Good evening to all here today. Welcome to SRDC Speak Up Event 2023. It is a pleasure to have so many great thinkers that appreciate the art of discussion. Before we start today's event, we would like to send out a very gentle reminder. If you would like to discuss by voice or text your opinion further, a channel link is provided in the chat and our social media itself. Remember to be mindful of the people around you and be open to new ideas and thoughts. Harassment or hate speech of any kind will not be tolerated. If you would like to send in questions, you may access the link available in the YouTube description box. Comment and like our posts throughout the event, as student engagement is a priority. Thank you and have fun! Welcome to Serdang Royals Speak Up. Before we start our event, we would like to take a moment to play the Malaysian national anthem Negaraku and the UPM anthem Putra Gemilang. For our event today, we will have three speakers sharing their knowledge on the topic of refugee realities in Malaysia. Our first panelist today is Dr. Rodziana Mohammed Razali, a senior lecturer at University Sains Islam Malaysia. Dr. Rodziana holds a PhD in law from the National University of Malaysia, as well as a Arnold and Blema Steinberg postdoctoral fellowship in international migration law and policy from Macquarie University. Her areas of expertise includes laws and policies addressing statelessness and refugees, foreign workers, and international law and international human rights law. Dr. Rodziana has been a research consultant, principal investigator, and co-researcher at many institutions since 2018, as well as having 27 publications. Our next panelist is Dr. Dina Imam Supaat, a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Sharia and Law at University Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM. Dr. Dina holds law degree as well as a master's in law, both from UKM, and in addition, she also holds a PhD in law from the University of Birmingham, UK, and a Medical of Professional Certificate of Mediation, Malaysia Mediation Center. Her area of expertise includes laws and protection of children as well as vulnerable groups, environmental law, and most relevant to today's event, refugee and migration law. Dr. Dina has many publications under her belt, including 17 articles and 7 books. She is also no stranger to talks as she has appeared since 2012 as keynote or invited speakers. Our third panelist is Mr. Muhammad Noor, the founder and managing director of the Rohingya Project. Mr. Muhammad Noor has a master's in business intelligence and analytics, as well as 15 years of experience as a business owner, corporate senior executive, TV station operator, news reporter, journalist, talk show anchor, corporate negotiator, and project manager. Other notable achievements includes the founding of many organizations including Rohingya Vision, our Vision, Rohingya Football Club, RFC, Rohingya Quran Translation, and the Rohingya Language Council. In addition, Mr. Muhammad Noor is also the author of the book titled Born to Struggle, The Child of Rohingya, Refugees and His Inspiring Journey, which was published in March 2019 based on his personal life experience. Our moderator for today is Raymond Kortong Liang. He is a member of the Serdang Royals Debate Club and a former We All Youth moderator. Tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different first. We understand that the subject of the reality of refugees can be a little daunting for a lot of you, especially for those who have never dabbled in it before. And so, tonight, before our forum begins, our guests here would like to give you guys a brief idea on the status of refugee situation in Malaysia. We'd be starting with Dr. Rodziana's presentation, next to Dr. Dina's presentation, and finally, Mr. Muhammad Noor's presentation. Please welcome Dr. Rodziana.
Okay, hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, okay. Thanks to my Sarah, and thanks to the English Debate Club of UPM for tonight's invitation. Actually, I just got back from the office and was quite in a haste to actually come on this platform. So let me start off by sharing my brief slides, okay, as to um, some introduction to the refugee context internationally, and also some local context on the subject, right? So let me share my screen first. Hold on, yeah. I'm trying to share my screen, but there are some questions that pop up. Wait, yeah. Share screen. Gosh. Yeah. Um, I guess I have to share the slides with the organizer so that you can help me with navigating the slides. Is that okay? Right, I have shared the slides with Lau. Could you please display the slides for me because I'm having problem to share my screen?
Hello, Dr. Dina. Good evening. I'm the moderator today. My name is Freeman. It seems that we are experiencing a slight technical glitch. I'm so sorry for that. My apologies. Please bear with us for a moment as we work to resolve that. Well, in the meantime, uh, Dr. Rodziana, as what I have received, Dr. Roziana has a rich background in laws, both in the legal issues and migration law, and we are overjoyed to have you on board to stand with us to share more about the refugees situation in our community in Malaysia. So. Before we resolve the technical problem about sharing the screen, I would like to ask some preface questions about our event today. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. By the
Yeah.
way, I actually
Yes.
shared the slides with Lau, and I hope
All right.
he can pass it to you, maybe the moderator.
Okay, sure. I will get in touch with Lau now.
Right. Okay.
All right, sure. So, as our first, as what we've been discussing, well, now, uh, Dr. Rosanna. Well, given that Malaysians themselves are already having a hard time finding a job after graduation, like what most of the university students are facing now, they are quite jobless after graduation. Well, is it fair for refugees to be allowed to work in Malaysia in our community, or does this threaten the job market for Malaysian, or does this threaten the job market for Malaysian citizens like us and contribute to economic challenges? What is your viewpoint on this question?
Okay, you're jumping straight to the question on whether we should allow refugees to work, right? So I would actually prefer to start off by giving some introduction on who refugee is, but somehow we can, yeah, talk about it if
We can proceed
uh,
with the first question
yeah,
then. Actually,
that's
I'm
the right. Okay. So we know that refugees are people who are in need of protection because of the situation that they are in and they face in their countries of origin, right? So they are not similar with other types of immigrants because of the protection needs that they have. And this stems from basically the persecution um, that they face in their countries of origin. And if you talk about it legally, we have to refer to the technical definition of who a refugee is according to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So there are certain grounds of persecution that they need to fulfill before they can be regarded as a refugee, legally speaking, right? So the persecution, the grounds for persecution can be on the basis of religion, political opinion, and a particular social group that they belong to, among others, right? Um, so coming back to the questions of whether they should be allowed to work, basically, before we go into this question, we need to somehow understand that they are in the country seeking protection. Somehow, Malaysia, as the so-called transit country for the refugees, does not actually have the protection framework according to the international legal framework for refugee protection. So we do not have that for them, as a result of which they are treated according to our immigration law by and large, right? So we treat refugees largely on humanitarian grounds, right? And in terms of the rights that they should get, basic rights and fundamental rights, most of them are lacking, including the right to access to the right to work, the right to earn livelihoods, right? So this is one of the areas in which um, refugees until now have not been able to access formally and legally speaking, right? They work in the informal sectors mostly, but in other formal level sectors,
Yeah.
these are inaccessible to them, right? Would you like me to talk about this, or would you like me to go for the slides first? Are you able to share the slides with the audience? I've
Yeah,
passed.
sure. I actually have get back to the to our technical team, and I believe they have resolved the issue. Can anyone replace me with the slides that Dr. Roziana would like to share?
Okay, thank you for the for the slides. Okay, I would like to begin with the introduction first, because it's important for us to understand the context, yeah, and some nomenclatures with regard to refugee. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who the refugee is under the law, and what will be the policy and practice in terms of our treatment towards refugees in the country, right? Briefly, in the context of international law, and mostly in the context of our country, Malaysian law and policy. So can we move on to the next slides? Right, a little bit of the background in terms of the figures. Globally speaking, if you look at the global figures, the figures in 2021 that has increased tremendously from 89.3 million to now 108.4 million forcibly displaced people, right? And regionally speaking, from 2016 to 2021, nearly 1.5 million refugees um, originated from countries within ASEAN, mostly under UNHCR's mandate, and most of them come from Myanmar, right? And the major host countries are Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia to some extent. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so according to the 1951 Refugee Convention, which we are not a party to, so a refugee is a person who, owing to well-founded fear of being persecuted for certain grounds, for certain reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion is outside their country of nationality. Okay, and the second part, they are unable or owing to such fear of persecution, right, is unwilling to avail himself or herself the protection of their country, right, or who not having a nationality and being outside the country of his former habitual residence is unable or owing to such fear unwilling to return to it. So this is a technical definition of a refugee, right? So not every person who claims to be refugee can be determined as a refugee. Okay, they have to go through a strict procedure known as refugee determination status, right, in order for them to qualify as refugee and to be entitled to all the protections eligible for a refugee with that status. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. So among the ASEAN member states, right, only the Philippines and Cambodia are parties to the 1951 Refugee Convention. So by right, they should provide uh, the legal and protection framework for refugees seeking protection in these countries. Malaysia is not until now. Yeah. Okay, next slide. All right. So apart from the Refugee Convention, we have the 1967 Protocol, right? So the 1951 Refugee Convention has geographical as well as temporal limits. All right. So basically, the main Refugee Convention, uh, it was drafted in the aftermath of World War II, and it basically applied to people displaced as a result of the events before 1951, right? The aftermath of World War II, right? So because of ongoing conflicts beyond the aftermath of World War II, so countries came together to come up with this special protocol, special agreement that whereby states should um, uh, also allow refugees who do not fall within the ambit of the 1951 convention to seek protection and enjoy protection as a refugee. So this is the extension of the scope of the 1951 Refugee Convention. Right? So immigrants versus refugees. Basically, in order to be refugee, you have to be outside your country, just like an immigrant. But the main criterion is the fulfillment of the well-founded fear of persecution on certain grounds mentioned in section or clause 1, the first section of the or the first article of the Refugee Convention, right? And then, so if you are qualified as a refugee, then your presence by right should not be considered as unlawful in the country that is party to the Refugee Convention, right? And you are protected with certain rights, right? Including the right of non-refoulement, which means that the state cannot return the refugee to a place where they will face threat to their life, to their freedom, okay, on account of the grounds mentioned in the first article. Okay. So these are I think the basic differences between who an immigrant is and who a refugee is. So immigrants can be, you know, divided into many categories. They can be expats, they can be students, foreign students in your country, but a refugee basically needs to fulfill all these legal criteria before they can claim all the protections and rights as refugees. Okay, next, please. So as of end of November 2023, our country record some 185,000 refugees and asylum seekers registered with United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And the majority of them are from Myanmar, right? Over 100,000 of them are Rohingyas, and then some 24,000, over 24,000 are Chins. They are also from Myanmar and other ethnic groups. Okay, and the remaining come from 50 countries, and these are people who flee war and persecution, including from those from Pakistan, Yemen, Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria, Sri Lanka, Iraq, Palestine, and some other countries. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right. So this will be some snapshot of the refugee context in Malaysia. Hold on. Okay. So as I said that we are neither party to the 1951 Refugee Convention nor its 1967 protocol, and we don't have a national asylum system or legal framework that recognizes refugees or provide any form of legal status to this group. And UNHCR or United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees assumes all responsibility for the reception of refugees into Malaysia, their registration and refugee status determination, and the required documentation, and provides documents basically that actually recognizes them and their de facto status in the country. So it actually gives some level of protection in the country if they manage to get the UNHCR card, right? And we are still bound by some customary international law obligations, even though we are not party to the convention, which is primarily principle of non-refoulement. And then it's a fact that Malaysia hosts among the highest number of refugees, especially within the region, within the Southeast Asian region, right? So they have no right to formal employment and very limited access to quality healthcare. Basically, the healthcare fees are very exorbitant for refugees. So these are among the challenges that they face on a daily basis living in our country. Okay. Next slide. So historically, we had refugees coming into the country since 1970s, and then we have seen large groups of refugees from Indochina in the 1970s, and then this was followed by those who fled southern Philippines, into Sabah, right? And then we had in 1980s the Cambodian asylum seekers escaping the brutal Khmer Rouge regime, followed by the Bosnian asylum seekers in the 1990s. Early 2000s, we had Achinese asylum seekers seeking protection after the breakdown of the ceasefire. And then 2015, Malaysia made a pledge to host some 3,000 Syrian refugees, right, through this migrant temporary settlement program. 2015, we had this the Andaman Sea crisis, basically the influx of Rohingya refugees during that time. And in terms of our general treatment. We provide temporary shelter, and we tolerate their presence mostly on humanitarian rather than legal basis. Okay, next slide. So under the Immigration Act, there are certain categories of prohibited persons. Still until now, they can be subjected to this Immigration Act. Yeah, they technically can be treated as an irregular migrant, even though there are some level of tolerance enjoyed by the UNHCR refugee card holders. Yeah, and they basically enjoy some limited freedom from arrest, even though we've heard cases that some of them also face arrest and detention, right? And then in terms of the potential protection space, I would like to share that under our immigration law, the minister has the power to exempt any person or class of person either absolutely or conditionally under section 55 sub 1. Yeah, um, and this section has actually been used to provide an immigration status to some groups of refugees, including those who fled southern Philippines in the 1970s. And next slide, yeah. So those who persons of concern are those whose status as refugees have yet to be determined, and if they are registered with UNHCR um, prior to their arrest on immigration grounds, they shouldn't be prosecuted in court and should be released from all charges pertaining to illegal entry. So this is um, what is being practiced based on the uh, s- uh, um, secular um, shared by the Malaysian Bar Council, right? And then finally, um, in terms of access to healthcare, UNHCR has actually negotiated with the government, resulting in a 50% discount off the foreigners' rate for refugees seeking healthcare services at public healthcare facilities. But in theory, the costs even after the discount remain exorbitant, and always they need to incur out-of-pocket payments, and this constitutes one of the primary challenges in terms of accessing their rights in the country. I think I'll stop at that, and maybe we should hear from the other two speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roziana, for the enlightening session. Next, please welcome Dr. Dina.
Contribute to our good. Good evening to the Dina. It's me again. While waiting for the slides to be shared, I would like to welcome you again to our Speak Up event here. Again, welcome to Dina. Dr. Dina has a rich experience in law also, in which Dr. Dina got her degree in law in University Kebangsaan Malaysia, both, and then PhD also. And then the PhD in Birmingham University, if I'm not right. I'm so sorry for the mistake. So, Dr. Dina, what I have seen here that Dr. Dina excel in the dimension of refugee children. So, could Dr. Dina differentiate with me about how can we treat refugee children, and should we treat refugee children more careful, if that's the word, rather than just being avoiding to the refugee children, avoiding to address the refugee children since they are still children.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have shared my screen. If you can tell me whether you see my screen.
Yeah. Let me get back to the tech team now. All right. So we have news from tech. That slide is on.
Okay, all right. I would like to thank everyone, to Raymond, to Janani, to the to the whole team, to the organizing committee for the invitation to join the session today. It's a pleasure to be with you and to share some information relating to refugee children. And I really hope that this will be um, part of your effort to educate yourself, because refugee is not a popular subject. Sometimes it can become popular, but most of the time it's not popular. Okay, so to answer Raymond's question, please allow me to have a discussion based on the slide. Okay, let me maximize the slide. Okay, so if you remember, this is the photos of the recent refugee, the Rohingya refugee that arrived in Aceh. Yeah? Okay, look at their condition. They have been in the sea for about 3 weeks. So before I proceed, I would like to ask yourself, I would like you to ask yourself, I'm sure everybody has a purse, a wallet. What do you have in your wallet? You have a card, you have your driving license, you have your ID card, you have your IC, also have, maybe you have your debit card, your metric card, your university card, your for adults, for working people, maybe they have credit cards. So you have all kinds of cards in your purse, in your wallet. But these refugees, they don't have that. They don't have any documentation because they are not recognized by their own country, so they don't have this documentation. But just imagine that at you are inside a house in a banquet. You are ready to eat. You are you have a banquet. You are about to celebrate something, and outside the house, there's people who look at you, who are about to eat, and they look at you. They feel cold outside, but they are not invited. They don't have seat inside. So that are refugees. So that is the analogy of refugees. That is their condition. So as Dr. Rodziana has explained earlier, she made a very good explanation on who are refugees. So I would like to echo, just a little bit on the the situation in Malaysia, because we don't legally recognize refugee. So our protection of refugees are complex because we base our protection on humanitarian gestures. Therefore, our action of the government would be inconsistent. Yeah, they can do this and they can do a different thing next time. Okay, but my session today would focus on refugee children. As Dr. Roziana had already mentioned, all kinds of refugee who are present in Malaysia, whether now, presently, or or historically or previously, or who are no longer refugees. The Vietnamese, for example, are no longer refugees. The Cambodian people, the Philippines, yeah, the Indonesian, and also the Bosnian, they are no longer refugees in Malaysia. And in fact, just to stimulate some interest, Malaysia actually uh, treat them differently. Malaysia treat Vietnamese refugee differently from the Cambodia, differently from the Philippines, yeah, and also differently from the Bosnia. Okay, so for refugee children, um, if you look at the provisions of the 1951 United Nations Convention relating to the status of refugees, you can see that the reason or the basis for persecution could be due to race, religion, nationality, and membership in a particular social group. So child-specific persecution is related to the membership in a particular social group, because child is not race, child is not about religion or not about nationality or political opinion. So the closest that we can go is membership in a particular social group, because children is considered can be considered as a social group. Children, because of due to their immaturity, due to their dependence to their carer, to maybe to their guardian, yeah, their parents, also being persecuted. They can be targeted, they can be subjected to harm, they can be discriminated or mistreated because of their identity or their age. Yeah? So a child-specific persecution can be manifested in many ways. I have listed some of them, but they are not limited to these only. So some children are conscripted into armies. They become child soldiers. So in order to escape this, they have to seek refuge in other countries. Yeah, some of them are being trafficked and exploited. They are being targeted for forced labor or any other kind of exploitation. There is also persecution relating to discrimination, because you are a child of certain race, you are a child of certain ethnicity or religion. So children can face persecution for this. There's also persecution relating to violence and abuse and denial of education. Certain group of uh, children cannot access education, just like in apartheid. Yeah, they allow certain group to enjoy certain set of rights, but deny certain people from certain rights. And it is also very common for children to be facing family separation. Yeah, in certain countries, the government create policies in which children are separated from their families. Yep, especially relating to indigenous children. Okay, um, within refugee children, and also maybe not only refugees, the immigrant children, we have uh, type, two more groups of children. We have separated children, and we also have unaccompanied children. So separated children are those are minors who are below 18 years old, who are separated from their parents or legal guardians. This can occur uh, due to conflict, due to persecution, and it can happen sometimes uh, intentionally. I'm sure, or maybe some of you have read the news where parents intentionally send their children to another country. Their parents from a, a country involved in war, or being persecuted. Since they cannot save themselves, they at least want to save their children, so they intentionally send their children abroad. They pay some money to get their children away from them. So this is separated children. um, and we also have unaccompanied children. Unaccompanied children who are those who are not in the care. They are not separated, but they are not being cared for. They are not being cared for. They are alone. Yeah, maybe they are separated during migration or conflict or natural disasters. So they may be on the move independently. So maybe they travel from Rohingya independently, but the separated children are those who travel together with their parents. Yeah, but maybe later when they reach the shore, they are separated, or for some other reason. Okay, so for refugees in Malaysia, we have about, as Dr. Rodziana has mentioned, we have about 185,000 refugees, and around 25% of them are children. These refugees will be in Malaysia between 10 to 25 years before they are resettled in a third country. So because Malaysia has this policy of allowing refugee to stay for temporary for they are allowed to stay for a limited time. Their stay is temporary. So refugees will stay here, and then they will be relocated. They will be resettled in other countries, the Europe, for example. And even though refugees, the Rohingya, for example, they prefer Malaysia, but since Malaysia's policy is not allowing refugee to integrate, to settle in Malaysia, sooner or later, these refugees will be resettled in a third country. So, and most of the time, refugee children, because they depend on their families. So if their families have economic insecurity, they will be affected by that economic insecurity. So refugee children also have mental health issues, and there are so many legal barriers that are stopping them from enjoying their basic rights. Um, so and refugees, for most importantly, has limited access to healthcare, and to navigate the social environment, because they don't have the social connection. They don't have the necessary tool to navigate the social life in Malaysia. Okay, so basically in Malaysia, after 50 years of hosting refugees, I don't see, or everybody can see, that there is no change on the legal status. Yep. So they are still being looked at as refugees. Yeah, they are not treated as children first. They are looked at as non-citizen. So in my opinion, since refugee children are staying in Malaysia for about 10 to 25 years, they need education for survival, because education is the tool for them to develop their skills, and knowledge that they need to improve their economic prospects. Since they live in poverty, only education can help them to break this cycle of poverty, this vicious cycle of poverty, so that they can increase their opportunity, their chances to be integrated in the community. Okay, I'm not saying that the Rohingyans or the refugees in Malaysia do not have um, access to education at all. They enjoy some degrees of education opportunity, but they are not in the formal education setting. The formal refers to the public education. So they are only allowed, they are not allowed to go to enter public education, the formal education at any level, but they can access the community learning center, the CLC. And these CLC are partly, many of them are partly funded by the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, and also funded by the NGOs and also private donors. But these funds are limited. It can only cater around 45% of refugee children. So if we have about 20,000 refugee children, only um, only 10, around 10,000 of them, not 10,000, yeah, almost maybe 9,000 of them are able to get education. Yeah, but the cost is higher. So this lack of framework for refugee children has hampered their education. They cannot they cannot get a quality education. And for female refugee children, without education, and because they live in poverty, they are at risk of being child brides, because the family may feel that they are a burden. They can no longer provide the children with the basic necessities, the food, for example. So these children are being offered for marriage at such young age. And the male refugees, I mean the male refugee children are at risk of being trafficked. Okay, in refugee setting, we have three types of durable solution. We have repatriation, local integration, and resettlement. Repatriation is where you return the refugee to their country of origin. But this is most desirable, but this is only feasible if if the country is safe. And local integration is where you allow refugee to be part of the community, the host community. For example, in Malaysia, if we allow them to locally integrate, then we will allow them to live, to assimilate, yeah, together with the citizen. And then we have resettlement. Resettlement is expensive because you need to transfer the refugee from the host country to a third country, and this third country to must agree to take this refugee, admit this refugee, and give them permanent resident status. So they will enjoy uh, the rights, almost similar to the citizen of that country. Okay, so my slide stops here, but I have maybe I would like um, to answer some questions, or some I would like to discuss just two more questions that the organizer have shared with me, and then so I would like to look at um, the most urgent issues that should be dealt with relating to refugees. And in my opinion, that is the legal status. The legal status of refugees is the most important thing that we have to deal with in Malaysia, that we have to work for, because without express protection, refugees in Malaysia will remain in limbo. They will continue. Uh, they will continue asking themselves how vulnerable their situation is in Malaysia. So I think I'm not sure if yes, I think that's all my presentation. Thank you. So from that, Raymond, I think um, my answer to your question was why do we have how should we treat children, how do whether we have to provide children with special protection. My answer to that is yes, we have to provide refugee children with a special protection because they are vulnerable and they have uh, besides not have because their characteristic, the criteria that they have make them very vulnerable. They are children, so they are immature, they have to depend on others to get their rights, to enjoy their rights. And secondly, they are refugees. So being refugees as adult are already a factor for vulnerability. What more if you are a children? So that makes them more vulnerable. And that is why more support um, should be given to refugee children so that they can grow, they can they can fulfill, they can attain their full development, full potential. Okay, I think that's all, Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dina, for that enlightening session. Now, let's not forget about Mr. Noor. Please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this great session for all the doctors who have spoken before me. I would like to just quickly uh, tell about myself, which is how I get to where I am and what am I doing, and how do we actually look into the issues of refugees, and specifically in a few refugee communities. So my name is Muhammad Noor. I'm a Rohingya myself, and I have uh, uh, been working for the Rohingya community for last 20 to 25 years, all around the world, and I have built many different organization and associations to uplift the Rohingya community in many different ways. So. So what I would like to also talk further a bit is I'm sure the doctor has explained pretty well in terms of what is the difference between immigrant and a refugee. So I'm going to go one step further. So there is another category that their conditions are worse than refugee, which are stateless people. So even a refugee from a war-torn zone company or country that actually comes to another neighboring country or maybe a country that is far away from them to seek protection. Uh, then you have other people like Rohingya. Rohingyas are not only refugees, but also they are stateless. It means that those refugees who lives in Malaysia, like Afghans and Sri Lankans and Yemens and Syrians, they are refugee. They really deserve protection. But once their country is, in a way, comes to a position where they can go back, they will go back in many cases. But or they will be taken back in some other cases as well. But for the Rohingya community, it's extremely difficult for even to go back. So Burma's democracy and Burma's achievement became an irrelevant to the Rohingya community because they disowned Rohingya community. So to understand that, so I will ask a few questions from myself and I will answer it. So my simple question is how refugees and stateless are made. Who make them, right? So those who, especially in the case of Rohingya community, it is very interesting that the Rohingya were living in Arakan, which is the neighboring between Burma and India, now Bangladesh and of course Myanmar. Uh, in late Earlier than that, Rohingya were living for many generations and for many centuries, and Burma has attacked and made into one of their state. And after that, during the British time, we were also equal citizen up till 1982. In 1982, they have declared that Rohingya is no more citizen of this country. So from where we became stateless, so everything that we own, the land, the property, everything that is disowned from us, and we have been pushed around and bulldozed around, and then to an extent that they have started to uh, 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 do persecution all the way to genocide. So the genocide is another factor into this. So that's how refugees and especially the Rohingya refugees are being made. So there have been genocide. There was like more, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 10 major program that has actually organized to kill Rohingya in bulk, to burn down their villages, to burn down their houses. So all those doctor mentioned in all these terminologies, which is, so I'm going to give you some real experience and a story that what happened exactly back in Burma, in backyard of Malaysia. So in 1997 and earlier than that, and recently in 2012 and 2016 and 17, Burmese military went into villages of Rohingya, raped women. According to Amnesty International, there's about 80 to 90,000 Rohingya women who are raped. And I'm sure there are many that is not even reported because it's considered shame. And many of them having the children and a baby of a Burmese rapist and a genocidal armist. So now what they do, they run away for their life in Bangladesh, and from Bangladesh they run to Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia and so on and so forth. So they are not uh, so so they are not running for economic reason that there is some drought and they cannot eat or so and so forth, but they are running for their life. So that is one case that I would like to make. The second one is that now if they go back and then they cannot even go back to their own land because they have been the government disowned them. So there's another second thing now. The third thing now, since the government does not own you as an stateless person now in the host country, you are not recognized as neither a refugee, neither an immigrant, and a country that also does not recognize refugee in a legal term also create a lot of barriers in many cases. Like the refugees, Yemeni refugees, they have also some sort of organized way to to communicate with their existing exile entities like exile government and stuff like that, like Palestinians. But in the Rohingya cases, it's extremely difficult to organize. So now Rohingyas are on a fourth generation of a statelessness. Like their great grandfather was a stateless. So what a stateless inherit, you must understand as a being individual as a Rohingya. Exactly what like doctor has mentioned just now, like a credit card and stuff like that. So those are very luxury items. A Rohingya cannot travel from an airport. An airport is a luxury. A passport is a super luxury. They have never been onto a plane. They've been smuggled left, right, and they've been sold out like fish on the market, on the fishing boat, on many brothels and stuff like that. So it's a horrible, horrible thing. So when they land in country like Malaysia and Thailand, so and then actually there is another issue that we have faced in 2021 in Malaysia. which is during the COVID time, there's a lot of xenophobia against the refugee community by the local. It turned out to be that when we dig out that whether how come Malaysian community is such a compassionate community, why they are have some sort of friction within this, then we realize that there is a many way Burmese government is not only persecuting Rohingya inside the border of Burma, but they're also persecuting Rohingya outside the border. How they do that? They're using Twitter, they're using Facebook and fake accounts, and make a fake account like Malaysian, Malay or Chinese and Indian, and then also make a fake account of a Rohingya, and then they fight with each other, they sweat each other, and the real people join the team and it started a skull, and then these things is spilled over from the platform to the ground. So these are extremely horrendous things that is really, really, really happening. So I just want to give you some the reason that I have not put into a slide, because I would like to communicate with you directly so that you understand a real person's story. So there's an academic point of view, there is a legal point of view, and also there is a human side of the story that really need to be heard, that really need to be felt, and also as a being, as a fellow human being, need to be compassionate at the same time, because it can happen. We hope that it doesn't happen to anyone. But as we see, refugees are growing day by day. Countries are being broken down either by foreign intervention, either by political collapse, either by economic collapse, either by racial hatred. So the more people are getting advanced, the more, if you really, really, I ask a lot of people, even now we are technologically more advanced and more sophisticated tools and more sophisticated knowledge, but are we solving problems? No. Human problems are creating day by day more and more, and you can see in different cases, also during Palestinian war and during Ukraine war, and see all these things. Refugees, I'm sure some of the slide you have seen, which is very interesting in terms of analysis. The refugees are increasing day by day, and problems are increasing day by day, but resources are actually decreased day by day by the United Nations and by other member states, and so on and so forth. But now, what I would like to go into something is, what just mentioned by earlier speakers, something very interesting. Refugee kids, when arrive in Malaysia, there is no way that they could be easily resettled. So normally resettlement takes from 10 to 25 years. That is quite true. But what happens after that? I recently visited, different parts of the world, partly in the US and also in Europe. I have seen Rohingya who born in Malaysia and raised up in Malaysia up to 2025. They cannot speak Rohingya, and they cannot speak, they do not know that they are, which part of Burma they are from, which part of Arakan. They speak Malay so pure, you would not recognize that they're, whether they're Malaysian or not. And they love Malaysia more than Burma, but even Malaysia did not accept it, but they were as a stateless person living there in during Eid festival, in different parts of U.S. in Chicago and Buffalo and stuff like that. They wear baju Malayu. They wear all the songkok. They wear the ladies baju krung and stuff like that. They're proud to talk in Malay. They feel that the identity has changed within them because they brought up in the land of Malaysia. And I have asked them many times now, but they are now US citizen. In one side they act like Malaysia, but they, in another side they say no, Malaysia has not done good to us in many ways. Why? Because they have not allowed us to go for education, to go to school. Otherwise we would have actually been quite well educated. But of course also they thank Malaysia for letting them to stay there and stuff like that. But they said now our entire life is lost. I'm 25 years old now, 30 years old now. I came to the US. Now I only speak Malay. I hardly speak English. I don't know how to read and write. And now I don't know what am I going to do next. I also cannot integrate with my community because I cannot speak Rohingya. So the other people say, you are Malaysian, but why you came here? Now I have US citizenship, but I don't feel like I belong in the US because I'm Rohingya, US citizen, but my identity is Malay. It is so complicated. It is so complicated. I'm telling you a human side story of this. So these things has going to be a long implication in many different ways. Because there is, lack of time, I would not go into a lot of all those things, but unfortunately many other that includes Palestinians and other as well, Syrian refugee, as and on top of that, if you really look at it, Muslim communities are destroyed in our countries, are destroyed day by day in the name of religion, in the name of sectarianism, in many. So ultimately this is a global responsibility, and this is also a responsibility of neighbors. Rohingyas are in backyard of Malaysia, and they've been spilled over, and Burmese government has actually pushing Rohingya to go to Malaysia and Thailand, so that ultimate game is to clear off the land Arakan, which is a genocide, the not only genocidal intent but full genocide. So what, as a refugee, what you could do, I totally agree with one of the points by the doctor, which is empowering the, since maybe Malaysian community or Malaysian government might not be, sending all the people in Burma, because Burma will never accept it. If they will accept also, there's another argument that I'd like to throw, to people, which is, let's say Burma down the line in 50 to 60 years time, they say, yeah, we will only accept refugees who are born in our land, but those who born in Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia and maybe rest of the world, now in India, in Saudi Arabia, we will not accept it. So now the most people who are born in Burma mostly died or halfway there, and the second and third and fifth generation will remain, and the problem will still remain after even resettling. Still problems are not solved. People have educational issue, people have integrity issue, people have an identity issue. So I believe, as a neighbor, as a global citizen, and as a brotherhood, it's extremely difficult to solve this problem individually, but Malaysia has actually put a lot of effort, and this is one of it as well, bringing the awareness to the public, and shaping the policies, and on humanitarian ground, but on a legal ground, and also more broader aspect, which really required, because for Rohingya, repatriation is not a solution totally, because they cannot go back. Local integration is not happening because there is no willingness to it as well. Resettlement is happening at the speed which is equal to zero. So just to give you my last example, there is 100 over 1,000 Rohingya lives there. So I'm not sure, but according to our research, there's only like 18, 20 families been resettled, or in Rohingya community, but the rest of others as well, some percentage. So if you just divide that 100,000 and 18 families a year, or even 20 families a year, or even 100 families a year, how many years does it require to resettle these people? It's going to take another couple of 100 years to resettle. So that is not also a solution. Those people who resettle there has also not found a solution yet. Their children has actually not integrated there. Some of them integrated, some of them even have lost their faith from Muslim. They have changed their faith into different. So more problem comes as well. So but my final say would be, as when we talk about Malaysia and hosting by the universities as well, it is extremely important to bring this up on a all aspect, not only on humanitarian aspect, also legal aspect, and responsibility to protect as well, which is R2P, and also global responsibility as well, and most importantly to make a better safe neighborhood that could spill communal violence could expel from one country to another based on religion, and so on and so forth. I guess this is where I will stop, and then I would like to maybe get some question answered along the way. Thank you very much, and hope the message is delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noor, for the inspiring sharing session. And this marks the end of our crash course to the refugee situation. Now, let's move on to the core of tonight's event, the forum. Please welcome.
Raymond, I think you are muted.
I'm so sorry. My apologies for that. All right. So why don't we get back to the discussion? Well, again, thank you, my Sarah, our beloved MC tonight. Well, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and our incredible speakers, Dr. Dina, Dr. Rodziana, and Mr. Noor. Thank you for being here today in SRDC Speak Up 2023 Refugee Realities to lend your voices to this important conversation about refugees and their experiences. Again, my name is Raymond, and I'm honored to be the moderator of this event. Well, after the presentation session, we are far from delighted and enlightened by the sharing in which Dr. Roziana has shared a lot about the legal status of refugee in Malaysia, as well as the fact that we are actually treating refugees in humanitarian basis, but not on legal status. And Dr. Dina's deep insight of refugee children that the only recognition of refugee children is the membership in a social group, and Mr. Nor's sharing of the true feelings and experience of refugees traveling all around the world. Well, after the sharing session from our three guest speakers, there are actually a lot of issues seem to require a lot of influential parties such as, let's say, organizations or government. Is there anything we as average citizens or university students can do to ease their struggles?
Let's one of the doctors.
Right. I'll just jump in and address that question first. So, as average citizens, I think maybe talking about your role as students, student leaders, right? There's a lot of space for you to engage with the community of refugees in this country, as well as the stakeholders who are working tirelessly to um, uh, advance the rights and protection for these people, right? So probably from an academic point of view, you should acquire much knowledge and understanding on refugee and the issues they're facing, so that you have you enlighten yourself on their situations in this country, what protection needs they require, and talk about it, engage in dialogues to give awareness, okay, among the students, and your, I mean, among your peers to start off with. That's the easiest way, right? Increasing awareness about the issues refugees face, and ensuring that the misinformation that's going around about refugees, can be addressed at your level as well. So that's I think a very important role that students can and play in terms of correcting misperceptions, misunderstanding about refugees, because we have seen basically a lot of like uh, hate speeches and xenophobic expressions um, being played out basically by netizens. And I know that your generations are very active on many social media platforms. So it's your responsibility to bring out the right messages out there, for people to actually understand who a refugee is and why we should or must help them. And second, you probably could actually approach civil society organizations, including community-based organizations, helping out refugees, within your local communities, um, within your state, within maybe your neighborhood. Okay, and try to check with them, is there anything you can offer in terms of your expertise and resources that you have to actually um, uh, to help out in any way possible. I think that is my response to your question.
Thank you very much for the insightful sharing from Dr. Roziana. Well, apparently we as students, we should really develop our knowledge. And well, actually just reading through a lot of academic papers of go on the ground, join a lot of NGOs that address the issue of refugees so that we ourselves can understand how to address this issue more. And thank you very much for the enlightenment from Dr. Rosiana. And well, speaking of the current contemporary time, the current media's coverage in Malaysia influence public perception and policies a lot regarding refugees. Should the government intervene with it, and in what way?
I would like to jump in and with the
Thank you.
previous question, and I would
Mhm.
like to put some input here on the what students can be done. So we have been working with multiple universities like UPM, IIUM, University of Malaya as well, and many other. Nottingham is one of them as well. So where we encourage students, like especially on human science, to do more research on refugees conditions and refugees legal issues, and also do many seminars within universities to bring proper awareness, because these students will eventually end up in a position where decision making happens, end up in a being officials in the government or any other NGOs that requires a foundational understanding of refugees, and so on and so forth, which is a research focus. So that one thing that we always encourage and communicate with universities and also university students to do. Point number one. Number two, which is we do a lot of clinic, which is on ground, on hand experience with the refugee communities by different university students to do volunteering in community schools, different schools in Malaysia, especially in KL, like Ampang and Selayang, and many others in Penang as well, where students go one of their time, weekly, to teach maybe English or any of the things. So to have some sort of hands-on experience, to and also show their appreciation in a way that even though you're marginalized, even though there is no proper protection from you. So we are here as a helping hand, and it is a both way. For them is a comfort as a refugee. For you, you have an experience to learn and also get a real rather than a textbook definition, but you have some human stories. Uh, so that's my two thing that is quite effective and doable. And of course, the third one, which is going more compiling all these experiences and research, and suggesting NGOs and governments, to do some sort of policy change, to do some sort of amendment in terms of in the real action. Those are not an action, those are an experience, hands on, but you need to put things on ground, put things on paper to get the ball rolling, and some sort of have some action as well. And on the media, then I would hand over to other speakers. On the media side, we have seen a lot of targeted xenophobic and also very specific content, during 2021, which we have a very bad experience, from a migrant to a refugees, from refugees to Malaysia, sorry, for the Rohingya community as well, and many others, which partly done by a lot of bad actors, not a lot of students, but those who are on a social media, they like to forward messages, and without fact checking. So there has to have some sort of fact checking, and fact checking only can be done if you are in touch with the community, and so on and so forth. And the government has also done parts in many ways, but unfortunately not enough to stop when all the social media hate came down to the ground, where some local people stopping refugees from doing work and doing videos and harassing them, stuff like that. This is where government should intervene, not to harass. If anything there should be done by government. Laws should not be taken by citizen, normal or ordinary citizen, to persecute anybody on the public. So then there is no law and order.
Thank you very much for Mr. Noor's enlightenment. Um, any other guest speakers would like to enlighten more on this issue of media coverage and policies?
Yes, Raymond. Um, but I would like to add a little bit on the previous question, the earlier question on what you can do. I totally agree with all the panels, because when you educate yourself, you raise the awareness, you can you can develop this empathy to for refugees. In my experience of communicating with people in presenting papers, whenever we talk about refugees, some of them, they're not really some, but many of them have this misconception about refugees, and they will ask me, why do you have empathy for refugee? How do you develop this empathy for refugees? Which then make me think about, why do people do not have empathy for refugees? And I think that is because this misconception, because they do not want to educate themselves, or they have this media playing their role in such a way that they portray refugees, um, they give refugees a face that we do not want them to be. So they give them the negative media coverage. Yeah? We have seen this, both of these kind of coverage. We have seen the positive media coverage, especially during the what you call refugee day, the celebration of World Refugee Day. So they give the positive media coverage. But other than that, I think most of the time they sound negative. They sounds negative. For example, when you are nearer to the I think nearer to the general election, if you have refugee issues in certain constituencies, they will highlight that. For example, in Langkawi, we have refugees at some area in Langkawi, so they will highlight that to influence the voters. This coverage, this media coverage also um, has a role to make refugee appear as human. So if you talk about human, you describe refugees as human. You describe their situation to make people understand that they are human. The public will understand that yes, they are human too, like us. They need protection. They need this and that. They have basic needs. But sometimes um, the media make refugees look like the other group of people. They are not people. They are just the other group. Yeah, which make us to think that they don't deserve this, and which makes us to think that the refugee um, do not entitled to the protection that we as human entitled to. And like Mr. Noor earlier mentioned, the role of social media. So the social media is, I think, plays a very significant role in shaping um, the public perception, because the stories that that we share, not only the big media, the individuals, the community, when we share positive stories, that will shape how people see refugees. But if we share those stories on crime, as if other people don't commit crime, only refugees commit crimes, that will make people scared of refugees. That will make people uh, feel threatened, yeah, about when you are with refugees, yeah. So this misconception about refugees are economic migrants, refugees are a security threat, burden to the economy, um, uh, they receive a financial assistance from UNHCR, from the
Yes.
government. Yeah? All this misconception, taking away jobs, for example, or they take away our social services, are partly these are partly played by the media. So the media, it's important for the media themselves to have a very good understanding, to have an empathy for refugees. Then only they can churn out uh, uh, news or coverage that could help inculcate the empathy uh, among the public.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dina. That was over insightful for me, for us to know that media now are claiming refugees on more to a negative sides. That actually, we as the viewers of what the social media has posted, we should have our own understanding on uh, acknowledgement towards this issue, towards this community, which is refugees, s- so that we can filter out a lot of media negative sides about refugees, so that we can have empathy towards this community. So actually, from my point of view, we can this is how we can cope with this problem about medias are claiming the negative side for the refugees. All right. Uh, moving back
I
from the
mean,
presentation. Yeah,
excuse me, I just like would
yeah,
like
sure.
to just say something about the media coverage and how our law is, I think, gravely inadequate to protect, as you know, vulnerable groups, minorities, yeah, from hate speeches. Yeah, so we are still relying on our penal code and the Sedition Act, which is a legacy of the British colonial era, and these acts have not, you know, done enough in terms of its scope to extend protection beyond those critics of the royalties and governments. Now we are seeing, hate speeches. A lot of these things happen on social media platforms, right? So all these laws need to be revised and updated to keep up with the digital era and how the current trends around uh, um, these hate speeches, insults, and xenophobic expressions can be better controlled, right? Because it can be a slippery slope. It can sow seeds of grave clashes, social, religious clashes, and even genocide in the long term. You know, it all starts with hate speeches.
Mhm.
A lot of what we have seen. Huge conflicts start off with all this. um,
Small
provocation,
sentence.
right? Yeah, that's
Yes.
just my
Yes.
opinion on the legal gaps that we have.
That's one way to address this. That, uh, but realizing that actually we provoke something that is not good for refugees throughout the media. That's why we have to revise and actually having, in my opinion, actually having policies against hate speech on uh, social media coverage. All right, so moving back from what Dr. Roziana has shared on the presentation just now about the legal status of refugee, that we are treating refugees now in our community, at least in Malaysia, on a humanitarian basis, that we treat them out of kindness and humanity, but there's no laws or legally protecting them. They are legally protecting them. Uh, and how does this actually impact refugees' daily lives? And of course, it will cause a lot of problems. How and how government can actually take care of this? That not being able to access to basic services, say healthcare and hospitality for refugees, will cause a lot of problems. But how? What is the bridge that connect to these two? And will it provoke any other chaos, and how government can do to cope with this?
Uh, I'm trying to understand the question. First, you're saying that refugees here do not have their legal status, therefore they do not have access to all the rights, protections, and services, and how would the government respond to address this? Yeah. So in Malaysia, the climate is that they live in a climate, a securitized climate. Like the landscape is securitized landscape. So they are seen as a security threat rather than persons who are seeking protection. So if we can move from that securitized paradigm to one that is of human rights protection, then a lot of change and improvement can be seen, of course. So this, of course, requires political will on the highest level, right, to move things forward. So this is a major barrier that has been there for a long, long time. Okay, maybe other speakers would like to add on to that, right?
Okay. I would like to address the issue of not having an express or specific statute to protect refugees. Um, for many years, since Malaysia accept refugees in 1970s, the boat people, Malaysia has been relying on humanitarian gestures. So we are not willing because of the public public reaction. When the Vietnamese came to Malaysia, first came to Malaysia, we accept them, but at some point, we do not want them to be here. I mean, we push back their boats because of some issues with. This is just to give you a context, because the Vietnamese came here with gold, so they pay everything with gold. So the seller at that time prefer to sell their goods to the refugees rather than the local people. So local people felt threatened because of this, because they the price of goods have gone up, and it's difficult for them to get supplies. So they begin to push the refugees. This is what we can witness from what happened in Indonesia. So they begin to push the refugees. So from then on, the the public reaction to refugees have been 50-50. I think there are situations where we accept refugees, but only to certain extent. We do not want um, any official recognition of refugee status in Malaysia. This is because um, the representative, even in if you look at the parliament, the what is discussed in parliament is only about helping the refugees, not recognizing the right of the refugees. So it's difficult, I know it's difficult, very difficult to um, to provide them with express protection. But what we can do as the public, what we can do is to um, to support the government with whatever with the policies that they introduce. Yeah, for example, the government introduced the 50% discount, yeah, and a discount um, for healthcare, for health services. We have to support that because that is the least we can do. We know we have to do more, but because we cannot do, because the law has limit our ability. The government has taken action under the administrative law, um, and because there's no express protection, we are inconsistent in our conduct. Sometimes we do this and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we allow, at some point, the Cambodian refugees, for example, are accepted in Malaysia. They are locally, they are integrated into the Malaysian community, but we do not do that with the Rohingya refugees. Yeah. So what we can do is to educate the people so that they understand the effect of accepting refugees, and then so that they understand that refugees are not a threat, so that if the government then decide to to accept to become parties to the refugee convention, it will be easy for the government to do that. Yeah.
Eventually, it goes back to the people that are in the community
Yes.
that would be the driving force for the government to address more about this issue. Thank you very much. And that would be the last question for our first sharing session. Thank you very much for the sharing and insightful knowledge shared by our three guest speakers, Mr. Noor, Dr. Dina, and Dr. Ziana. I will hand over back to our MC tonight, my Sarah now.
Thank you for the informative sharing session. We will now be taking a short 5-minute break, after which we will be continuing with our second forum session. All right, welcome back, everybody. We do hope that you're still here while you get settled down as I invite Raymond to take over the main stage. If you have any questions, please don't forget that you may send in your questions to our Slido. You may access the link via the chat and description box below.
Hello, hi. Am I audible? Yes, I am. Hello and hi, folks. Welcome back. As we have discussed in depth overall about the current situation of refugees in our community, well, let's now delve deeper to find out more, in which it is with great honor that we have Dr. Roziana on board. Dr. Roziana, who respectfully possesses wealth of knowledge and expertise on the laws regarding to refugees. We are privileged to benefit from Dr. Roziana's deep insight into the complexities of running a community project for Speak Up for refugees. So, Dr. Roziana, do you think that allowing refugees to seek protection is primarily a responsibility, or it is just a good deed to be done?
Um, Speaking as a human, of course, it's our moral responsibility to help our fellow human beings who face suffering, who face persecution, right? So it's, I believe, it's innate in us, right? It's something that s- we have inside us, right? The desire to help those who are less than us, who face multiple challenges in their lives. But yeah, of course, if you ask from a legal point of view, you can get different answers, based on who you are. If you ask me as a human rights lawyer, of course, we have a legal obligation. But if you ask someone, probably in one of the members of the bureaucrat, probably he might give a different answer based on national interest, security interests, and other factors. But if you ask me, is both a moral and legal obligation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roziana. That is definitely some borderline that we have to respect. But being a human is definitely uh, a, is definitely necessary for us to help out our fellow humans, friends. So, well, next we are having this inspiring and powerful woman who excel in her respective field of law, especially the rights of refugee children, both being refugees and children themselves. This is Dr. Dina. What are the key domestic laws in Malaysia that provide protection for refugee children, and how effective are these laws in safeguarding their rights?
Okay, as we have discussed earlier, we now know that Malaysia is not a party to the Refugee Convention. We are not a signatory, and we do not have a comprehensive legal framework on the rights or on the protection of refugee and the refugee children in this country. So we have to find other ways to protect them. So we have uh, laws scattered in different statutes, different legislation. For example, we have the Immigration Act. This has been mentioned by Dr. Rosanna earlier. This is the basic laws that governs the immigration. However, this Immigration Act does not actually protect refugees because it only make refugees as undocumented migrants as illegal migrants. Yeah? So they become offenders, migration offenders. We have Child Act in 2001. We have Child Act, and this is the act that addressed the welfare and protection of children in Malaysia, and it should it should protect. This act should protect both Malaysian children, citizens, and also non-citizens, but it does not specifically address refugee situation. So, in general, the Child Act 2001 should apply, should also protect refugee children. And then for education, we have the Education Act, the 1996. This protect the right to education for all children, including non-citizens. Yeah. However, um, the practice in Malaysia is that um, even though we allow expatriates to be in public school, in formal education, we do not allow refugee children in public school. So the the provision in providing free primary education is only provided um, to Malaysian children, and then the law that says it's mandatory for parents to send their children to get education uh, is also not applicable to refugees. So, in one hand, we want children to go to school, but in the other hand, we don't provide the ecosystem, yeah, for refugee children to enjoy their right to education. I think these are the laws that directly um, uh, applicable to that directly protect refugee children, other than the all the other public law legislation like the penal code, the sexual offences against children. They are all applicable to refugee children. However, since we do not have a specific law, express law, comprehensive law protecting refugee children, the protection for refugee children are not as effective as they should be. Because of this absence of adequate law, we can see that the protection is not effective. There are so many challenges. For example, we do because of a lack of law, we uh, the refugee children are not do not have a good legal status, which means they don't have legal status, so they becomes vulnerable. They cannot access uh, the basic services, essential services. Yeah, they cannot actually get education, a formal education, apart from not having access to healthcare, because refugees do not have uh, uh, documentation, except for refugees who have been recognized by the UNHCR and then granted with the UNHCR card. So those refugees can access healthcare, but like we have discussed before, the price is it's not cheap. Yeah? And then children, or not only children, even the adult refugees, because of lack of this legal protection, they are at risk of exploitation, child labor, human trafficking. When children are not in education, they have to do something. So what they do is they will find a job, odd job. So this is illegal, but still they do it. But after some time, let's say after working 1 month, after for 1 month, then at the end of the month they should be paid. But what happened is the employer may not want to
Mhm.
pay. If the employer are dishonest, they won't pay. So they will use the refugee status as illegal immigrant to threat them, to extort them, and not paying them money. Yeah, so I think that are those are the things that can happen if we don't provide good protection. And the other thing that can happen to refugees without protection is arrest, detention, and deportation. So I remember at one point in early 2000, I think, the government allow the rela, the civil, what you call this rela, Ikatan Relawan Rakyat Malaysia, to arrest refugees, and they get money for arresting refugees. Yeah, uh, so if the refugees cannot prove that they are refugees, they don't have that paper, rela will detain them and get money for that. uh, yeah, so refugees without legal protection, without express legal protection, will be at risk of being arrested and then detained. So just imagine refugee children being detained. So detention is the last thing you want to do to yourself or other people. Yeah, and then you can face deportation. So imagine that you come from Rohingya and then being here, and then you are being sent back to Rohingya, or um, you cannot send them to Rohingya, but you send them to the last port that you know they come from. So let's say they come from Thailand, so you send them to Thailand. And in Thailand, they are at risk of being a victim to human trafficking. So without um, express protection, without good protection, legal protection, so refugees and their children, the refugee children, will always be at risk of this human right violation.
Mm. Thank you very much, Dr. Dina. Well, moving next, we have Mr. Noor, an esteemed guest who has deep understanding about a distinct community in Malaysia, Rohingya. Well, let me remind everyone here that Mr. Noor is the founder and managing director of the Rohingya Project, a blockchain-based organization to bring social and financial inclusion to stateless people. Mr. Noor, what inspired you to establish the Rohingya Project, and what are your aspirations for the initiative?
Thank you very much. So being a Rohingya, there's two way to look for solution. One way is to seek solution from other people, organization, and government, and knocking the door of left and right to get a solution, which we are continuously doing, putting our case on ICJ, International Criminal Court of Justice, for to prosecute Burmese military junta on genocide they committed, and also knocking the door of ICC as well, and many others, international tribunals, and making sure that people get heard. But these are all a solution that will take a long time, and also do not have any determined result. So, having said that, what we need to do is a bootstrapping within the community. That's what exactly what I have done. For last 20 to 25 years, I have started many different organizations. Starting one with which is Rohingya language development. Rohingya has a language itself, which has also been destroyed by the Burmese junta, and also the by the Burmese people, which we have reclaimed and restructured and redeveloped in many different ways, and also unicoded. Today it can be written on many multiple devices in Windows and Android and iOS and so on. Along with that, the latest project that we have been working on since 2018 is called the Rohingya Project. So the Rohingya Project is one of the revolutionary projects that we have been working on, which to bring a system that actually how can technology help a community that needs help using different tools. It could be a blockchain technology, it could be AI technology, it could be many others. So that's what we put together. We started to build some sort of financial token system using blockchain technology, which is the latest cutting edge technology, using a blockchain to intermediary do transactions through the token so that they can be compensated and incentivized. And along with that, what Rohingya project is also doing is to build a decentralized identity system over the blockchain as well. So means to say Rohingya can claim and decentralize an individual identity to preserve their individual identity. Along with that, moving forward, also building a collective identity platform where Rohingya historical documents such as citizenship card and such as land heritages and land deeds can be stored using technology and a blockchain technology to preserve their cultural heritage and a collective identity. So that's the another component that we are working on. And another component that we are building, which is called educational component, educational wing of Rohingya project, is called the Art Academy, where we are building courses in our languages and providing people with content they required and content that for them to learn and seek knowledge. If they cannot do that through a legal system, like getting into schools or getting into colleges, so what we are trying to build an alternative online system where they can have some sort of education. So far, we have been built number of courses from life skills to intellectual skills to hard skills like computer graphics, critical thinking, leadership skills, and many others as well. So they are on different uh, front. We are using different tools to build these technologies and also to bring these technologies to ordinary people anywhere so that they can have access. Those who do not have access to direct education, direct legal identity system, and also the ultimate goal of the Rohingya project is how can we the unify and also identify ourselves in our existence as well. So this is what the project has been doing for last couple of 5 years. I guess Mr. Raymond has some sort of an issue.
I'm so sorry. My apologies for a slight technical glitch just now. All right. All right. Thank you very much to our guest speakers. I'm so sorry. My apologies for a slight technical glitch just now. All right. Thank you again to our guest speakers, Dr. Roziana, Dr. Dina, and Mr. Noor, for your insightful and enlightening sharing session regarding the Rohingya project. Now, I'm so sorry for that. Now, without further ado, it's time for our audience to engage in the conversation. To everyone of you in front of the screen, if you have questions or comments, feel free to type them out in the live chat on the right side of your screen. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible. Well, let's make this Q&A session as dynamic as it gets. Feel free to share your thoughts on the comment section below and speak up. right, so now we have one question from Sophia Asman. How does Malaysia's stance on refugees compare with other countries, and what can we do better? Does Dr. Roziana want to address this question?
Okay. How does Malaysia stand on refugees? Right. If we okay, thanks for this question. I'm trying to reflect on how countries in our region respond to refugees and treat refugees. So if we look at our neighbors, basically we have quite similar stance. You know, those who are hosting refugees among the ASEAN member states, especially Thailand and Indonesia, those are not we are not countries that ratify the refugee convention, so protection is severely lacking, right? Whereas those countries, the only two countries who have signed up to the refugee convention are not actually countries that receive as many refugees as we do. These are, I'm talking about Cambodia and the Philippines, right? Uh, so the treatment towards refugees globally, I think it changed the trend change from time to time, depending on political climate and other contributing factors, right? But if you see globally, countries who have better treatment towards refugees are countries in the north, such as the Scandinavian countries, Canada, Australia, and US. These are also donor countries, countries that provide funding to UNHCR to operate. Um, right, so they receive refugees, but of course, according to their respective quota and quota system, right? So, how can we do better? Uh, well, if we can go back to your question on, I think what the government can do, um, we depend a lot on as you said, one is political will, the other is public perception. So if we can influence and shape policies to, um, um, you know, improve or to shape policies to influence change in the political will, which also comes down to how public perceptions are shaped around issues on refugees. I think there's a lot of space for us to work out together on providing better protection and treatment towards refugees. Yeah. So that is my, I think, general answer to this question.
I would like to respond to that. Um,
Yes.
Thank you for the question. So, as compared to, since even though Malaysia is not a party to the Refugee Convention, we are one of those countries that accept the most refugees. Cambodia and Philippines have very little number of refugees, even though they are a party to the Refugee Convention. But refugees do not actually go to those countries. Yeah, they come to Malaysia for various reasons. Um, so if you compare Malaysia with Thailand, for example, Thailand placed their refugees in camps. So at least refugees have place to go, but they cannot go outside of the camp. Malaysia used to do that. We placed refugees in camp, but in 1990s we stopped doing that. So refugees can move freely, especially if they have the refugee card from the UNHCR. So we cannot it's difficult to see to compare Malaysia and the developed countries because they have more resources, and it's not easy for me to see that Malaysia must ratify the Refugee Convention. I want Malaysia to do that, but the financial burden to do that would be enormous. Yeah, we have seen research on these developed countries that bear a lot of heavy burden, yeah, heavy financial burden, uh, since they have to provide for the refugees. I'm not saying that we cannot provide for the refugees. Again, it goes back to the situation of our of Malaysian people. But what we can do better, my suggestion would be to to register the refugees, since we rely so much on the UNHCR to 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 process refugee application for refugee status. We leave that to the UNHCR, and then we don't provide them with documentation, any documentation. So we don't, since we do not, where we don't register these refugees, when we don't have the record, uh, Malaysia can, some disagreement, some misunderstanding could occur between Malaysia and UNHCR, because there are accusation back then. I remember in when Malaysia have this problem with UNHCR, because we accused UNHCR of indiscriminately issuing the cards to just anyone. So because we don't keep the records, it's easy for accusations to crop out. So what I suggest is, since we cannot expect Malaysia to become a party to the Refugee Convention, what we can do is to improve the situation by registering all the refugees. So each time the UNHCR process, then we have to keep a record as well, so that we know what UNHCR is doing, so that we don't have these suspicions to UNHCR. And the other thing that I would like to suggest is for Malaysia to allow refugee to, um, apart from the documentation, um, we should allow refugees to attend public schools with certain conditions, and not just any school, and not just any refugees, with certain condition, provided that they have the refugee card, and then they have learned bahasa Melayu, bahasa Malaysia, so that uh, they can really learn in public school. Yeah, or and they can also, we can allow refugee to, of course people will say, oh, we have enough student in our school, but remember, we have school which are undersubscribed with very few students. So if the refugees happen to be in this area, we could allow them to join public school. And last but not least, since we cannot, since there are still cases of refugee being detained, I think one of the concern, even from Suhakam, coming from Suhakam, is the condition of the immigration detention centers. Even though this has improved significantly, we should avoid detention of refugees. So detention should be the last resort, and if uh, it is needed, then it should be done according to the uh, international standards for imprisonment and detention. That's all, Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dina and Dr. Roziana, for the insightful speech. So, do we have any other question from the ground? Let me get back to the technical team and I'll see if we got any question in the Slido. Oh yeah, we do have one now. From someone. How do we start to recognize refugee status and rights? Oh. Should we start with local policy, or would pushing for national policy make more of a difference? Or would pushing for national policy more significant by an understanding? Would anyone from the guest speakers would like to address this deep question?
I think we can start by educating the people first. First thing first, we have to educate the people, raise their awareness, make them understand who refugees are. If they really understand and then they understand the benefit of integrating refugees into our community, then only we are able to to recognize refugee status and their rights. Because in Malaysian experience, when the parliament or when the legislator wanted to introduce a law, there are cases where the where laws where bills in the parliament cannot push through because or due to the resistance from the people. So in my opinion, we should start by educating the people, make them really understand who refugees are, and we have to address their concern. Then only we can start with the policies. We need to start not with the local policy, but for the national policy, of course, because it's the cabinet who come up with policies that can influence the enforcement of the law. For example, at one point, the cabinet can say that they can introduce policies that allow refugees to stay or allow any refugees to stay and do not arrest them even when they do not have the UNHCR card. So it's the cabinet who can introduce the national policy, and this national policy will be translated by the into the action of the enforcement authority. For example, I think that's all.
Okay, I just
Okay,
would
thank you very
like,
much, Dr.
yeah,
Rosiana.
yeah, there's just one point that I think there's an urgency to differentiate refugees from illegal or regular migrants, right? Because this comes down to their, basic right to freedom of movement. So, um, and also comes down to right to life. So, without having the security to move around, it actually takes away a lot of other rights, especially the right to livelihoods, to provide support for themselves and their families. So I think we should push for that differentiation to be clearly realized through legal amendment to the law, the Immigration Act as well. I think that's all.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rosiana. All right, thank you all for joining us today in this insightful and thought-provoking discussion on refugees. Our gratitude thus goes to our distinguished speakers for sharing their expertise and experiences. Well, let's also express our appreciation to the organizers, SRDC, Southern Royal Debate Club, and the MC for making this event possible. As we wrap up, I encourage each of you to carry the knowledge gained today into your communities. Remember, our collective understanding and empathy can make a significant impact. Now, without further ado, let me hand the mic back to our wonderful MC, Maisara, today. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you, Dr. Dina, and thank you, Dr. Rosiana.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. A hearty thanks to our panelists, Dr. Roziana, Dr. Dina, and Mr. Muhammad Noor for sharing their expertise with us today. Thank you to Mr. Thank you to our moderator for for moderating the event just now. A big thanks as well to Bahagian Hal Ewa Belajar for hosting this event. Without them, this event would not be possible. Lastly, thank you to our viewers for taking part in SRDC's Speak Up event. We hope you had an insightful evening. Of course, before everyone leaves this stream, do stay for the merit collections. All students should take a screenshot with identification proof by typing your name and matric number in the chat. Please ensure that your clock with an Please ensure that your clock with an accurate time is visible in the screenshot. Though we highly recommend you to do this easy alternate by taking a selfie with the background of the stream. You're given approximately 3 minutes. A minute. Yeah. All right, if you are facing any issues with the merit collection or event, email us at srdcspeakup@gmail.com. Of course, if you need to refer to the email again, it will be made freely available on our Instagram page, highlights. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again. Bye.